Ours is a growing community with a healthy economy, pleasant neighborhoods, lots to do. Everyone is busy going to work, going to school, playing sports, living their life. Here in York Region, this is what we see when we look around. But behind this nice picture is something else. And what we don't see is as important to the integrity of our communities as what we do see. Often, we don't realize what is happening right next door until the day a police cruiser pulls up in front.
Our region, like people still kind of think like we are a relatively affluent community, so we don't have a lot of issues. I think that's the perception in general.
It's not a topic that people want to talk about, either due to shame or fear or not knowing where to go for help. It's not a topic that is often discussed in the papers. The papers will only pick up if a woman's been murdered or she's been, beaten badly and it's become a police case and then it's picked up.
It takes, on average, 35 occurrences of domestic violence to occur in a home before the victim reports that to the police or seeks help from any agency.
I think where people are caught by surprise sometimes is that they're surprised how close to home it hits. We serve a large population of immigrant communities, and quite often we find that there's a cultural issue as well, where certain things may be accepted in certain culture, and people don't know that that's actually considered violence.
People think that it's just isolated to someone's home, an individual victim, it's just between the victim and their partner. But what ends up happening is one incident that occurs in a home affects the victim in their workplace, it affects their children in their school, it affects the healthcare system. I mean, it goes on and on how this just snowballs, and it is a community problem.
May not be very visible to a certain extent, but people, have been telling us, and we learn from our interaction, with our partner agencies and our community members that there is a huge issue about domestic violence, in our community that we have to tackle with together.
About 6 years ago, or 7 years ago, a very young woman, I think she was about 18 years old, and she had come to Canada, got married at a young age, and she was young. She wanted to go to school. She wanted to learn English and find her way around, and she was not given that opportunity. She was actually locked in the house. She couldn't go out, and she was experiencing violence from her partner as well. And then her neighbors brought her to the shelter. We provided her support, and I remember the first day when she had come, I had actually talked to her myself, in a lot of trauma, fearful, could not speak English language, didn't know what a shelter was all about, did not know whether she could trust, strange women she's never met before.
When a client walks through the door of any center, there is a level of nervousness, there's a level of feeling vulnerable, because you need to tell your story to people that you don't know.
I clearly remember one woman. She was very much in love with her partner, and he had strangled her in the past in the shower and assaulted her. She was very frightened of him. And in this particular case, he smothered her with a pillow and then kicked her so hard that she went flying out of the bed. She had scratched him when he was smothering her with the pillow, so he had scratch marks on his face. So when the police took a look at how they looked, he looked like the injured party. When she came to see us, she was covered in bruises and had quite a large bruise on her hip where she had been kicked. And we documented all those injuries.
And for some of the clients, they bring along stories with them that are painful. And every time they have to tell there's a level of pain that's involved.
They don't know what's going to happen next. You know, they don't have the support in place, and they don't know where to go, and they don't have the financial means to go anywhere. And so therefore the solution to them is to recant.
In the last year, you know, we have as a shelter seen an increase in forced marriage and honor-based crimes. I just want to make it very clear that as an agency, for us, those are not different from any other forms of violence against women. They are forms of violence against women, but you know, the reasons become different.
I'm always nervous when people sort of flippantly say, well, you should just leave. That's actually putting that person in a much more dangerous situation. We know from the research that a woman is at her highest risk of being murdered when she's preparing to leave a relationship, when she leaves, and up to 6 months after she leaves. And it isn't until after she's been out of the relationship a year that that risk will go down. So it's really important, and a lot of women are frightened about leaving, and they're frightened for valid reasons. Their partner tells them that they will hunt them down. Their partner tells them that they will kill them if they leave. Their partner tells them that he will take the children away from them.
You know, when you hear about these things, you can't believe that how human beings can do this to each other, right? It's not even real.
Often domestic violence takes place where there are no witnesses. So the evidence that we collect is so crucial because it can support the story.
So when I go in and talk to community members, like, you know, I go out and do some speeches or whatever, and everybody will ask me, like, you know, so how many women do you serve a year? And when I say 1,000, people get surprised. Like, and I said, those are 1,000 that have come forward. I don't know how many have not had the courage or not been able to come out and say, I need help. So 1,000, you know, women in the community, I think, is a lot every year.
Women need a lot of resource. I liken it to a rocket ship taking off from the Earth. Initially, the gravitational pull is really, really strong. So you need a lot of energy and a lot of power to get that rocket ship lifted off from the Earth. But the further it gets away from that gravitational pull, the less energy is required to keep it going. And I think it's very similar with domestic violence. Initially, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of resources and a lot of support. But yes, things do get better.
One of the reasons I do what I do is because I hear stories like this, and I feel, you know what, not enough work has been done.
This is a great move, right, for us to have this center there, you know, front and center, like in an accessible location.
And get to see 5 or 6 people, and you don't have to travel up and down the region again and again.
Our hope is that we're not going to see those same people coming back again with repeat occurrences with the same offender or with different offenders.
We can't just walk away or walk out. We've got to remain with it and stay focused and make sure that women get served, but other people who need it get served as well.
When you have a setup where different agencies work together, one advantage is that the client only has to tell his or her story once.
And as a result of this incredible collaboration between agencies, the information can be shared without re-traumatizing the victim.
30 plus organizations were coming to the table with all different various vision, mission, and values.
It's not easy for people to come together and figure out, okay, how we work together. It's not an easy job.
And we need to set up the structure so that the agencies are also looked after.
That goes a long way to making people realize that there are people out there that can empathize with their situation and can really, provide the information and the support that they need to make positive change and to move on.
The good thing about that was that now I know this young woman, she speaks English really well. She's going back to school, she's educating herself, and from what I know, I think the services that we offered her, the services that a shelter and many other agencies in the region offered her, made her into that young, confident woman that she is now.
I think at the highest level, there is that commitment from every agency that they simply want to help people, right? And I think that's the overarching principle that we all start with.
But of course, there are still challenges ahead, right? Resources is one, how people work together, how every one of us will have to park our own, ego or agenda at times and say, okay, let's deal with it together. We have some issues, very serious business to deal with, to work with. So let's work on it together.
And there's one in Durham region, there's a couple in Toronto, the greater GTA region, Peel region has just opened one. So I think the advantage we have is by all the other hubs opening before us, we were able to learn from their mistakes to know what we should do better.
I'm really convinced that partnerships and collaborations are the way of the future for us serving the needs of the community.
I'm really hopeful that the support that the York Region Centre for Community Safety offers a victim will really reduce the number of victims that don't see it through.
And I do really see the energy is there, the will is there, the expertise is there, so this is amazing.